have a question for you. Can you love your country deeply while still loving people who see the world differently?
It's a good question, Debbie, because we've just celebrated the 4th of July, right? As we explore what healthy patriotism really looks like, we want to talk about it through the lens of gratitude, freedom, faith, and then, of course, responsibility.
We're going to talk about why patriotism doesn't have to create division. It really doesn't. And how our greatest contribution to our beloved nation can begin in our homes and in our relationships.
Yeah, I think we're all aware of the noise in our country, right? It's something that we're all concerned about. We hope that you'll join us for kind of a special Independence Day episode from the Gilmore&green podcast. Do you sometimes feel lost in your relationships, your identity, or even your spirituality? Welcome to Gilmore&green, where healing and hope meet.
We are marriage and family therapists and relationship experts who care deeply about helping you grow, strengthen your relationships, and deepen your sense of meaning and spirituality.
We long to share from our clinical experience, years of training and solid research, including ideas about how to strengthen the things that matter the most to all of us in life.
We're so glad you're here. Our hope is to share simple, meaningful ideas that support you in your healing and in your growth. Welcome to Gilmore&green, where healing and hope meet. I'm Dr. Debi Gilmore.
Yeah, and I'm Sharilyn Green. We're so glad you guys are with us today. With Independence Day, actually the 4th of July has just passed. We've just celebrated it with our families. And we've watched fireworks and flags and families kind of gather all across our communities. But holidays like this, especially this one, can also stir up a lot of emotions. For some, there's a lot of deep gratitude. For others, there's concern along with this gratitude about the direction of our country. And many wonder if it's even possible to love our country at the same time, feeling like they disagree with how others feel. So it's a complex holiday, actually, as we sit and think through this and slow it down, Debbie. I guess I didn't realize myself how complicated it is.
I got a picture of my littlest grandson holding up a sparkler, and his face was full of joy and thrill, the excitement of this light and whatever celebration he understood was happening. At 3 years old, he wasn't thinking about differences. He was thinking about how exciting it is that his family was celebrating something important. And so that's kind of where I want to start is, what is this all about? We're going to explore a very simple but meaningful question here. What does healthy patriotism really look like? What does that mean? How would we talk about it? What would we do? Can we love our country deeply without becoming divided from those who see things differently? I believe we can. I am so convinced that we can. But first, I think it would be helpful, Sharilyn, if we talked about what is patriotism.
Yeah, so I guess when you say that, the first thing that, of course, comes to my mind is displaying our flags and singing patriotic songs. I guess I even go back to my little 4th grade life and think about what patriotism felt like, or the 4th of July. But you're right, as we slow it down and really dissect maybe what patriotism is, I guess some of the things that come to my mind and heart more are gratitude, right? There's definitely part of patriotism is gratitude. Gratitude for the sacrifices that have made our freedoms possible, for the principles that our country and nation was founded on. Another thing I guess that I'd add to that as I slow down and think about patriotism is that also doesn't require pretending our country has never made mistakes or that everything's okay. Right? It doesn't mean that at all either. So yeah, I'm excited to keep talking about this with you and kind of slow it down and think about what this really is.
Yeah, I think about when we teach about perfectionism and we try to help people understand that no one is perfect. All humans are flawed in some way or another. And my mistakes are different than yours. My flaws are different than someone else's. And so as we talk about this, as I think about this celebration that we've just gone through, the idea of our country being 250 years old, I was brought to a new level of awareness of my gratitude for the benefits that I do enjoy in this country. And having visited third world countries and seeing the contrast, that's when it really struck me as Our country has made some serious mistakes and our leaders are not perfect. But overall, in general, there is something pretty amazing that's been created here. Just like in our closest relationships, love doesn't ignore weaknesses. Love stays committed while working towards something better. We make mistakes. Apologies need to be welcome. Forgiveness needs to be available. Loving our country means caring enough to help strengthen it. So, we also want to point out that patriotism is not nationalism. This isn't a history lesson. Really, sometimes people confuse patriotism with nationalism. Patriotism simply says, I love my country. Nationalism often says something like, my country is superior. It's above someone else. Everyone else is less valuable. There is an important difference here. And I hope that these two simple statements can point that out. Healthy patriotism allows us to appreciate blessings, the things that we enjoy, while still honoring the dignity and worth of people everywhere.
Yeah, as you talk about the ideas even of a difference between entitlement and responsibility, right? When we love our country, we feel a responsibility, and when we feel superior, there's an entitlement to that I think isn't healthy. So I'm just
Right.
listening to your thoughts, Debbie, and thinking about them. So, like I just said, yeah, it requires responsibility, and that's actually one of the greatest gifts that I think we've been given is the freedom to choose. We live in a country where we have the freedom to do whatever we would like for the most part. We have the opportunity to choose what's right. We have the opportunity to worship according to each of our consciences, to serve others, and to live with integrity. In some of the scriptures you and I read in our faith community, it talks about being anxiously engaged in a good cause within the act of our own free will. So freedom isn't something we just enjoy. It's actually something we have to care for and protect.
Yeah, freedom doesn't mean being irresponsible or disrespectful. Freedom means honoring each person's right to be here and
Yeah.
to exist together. So it seems important, at least to me, that this idea of patriotism needs to be cultivated in our homes while
Mhm.
our children are young. Cultivating this attitude of and principles very early in a child's life so that it's their norm, it's what they live to respect others, to be grateful for this country that we have. And sometimes we think that patriotism becomes or begins in government or politics. Not at all. No, those government is how we structure and organize our daily living. Laws in society actually protect us. I'm going to stop at the stop sign so that I don't get hit by another car or hurt someone else. But by the time we're adults, if we wait until then to decide what is patriotism, what do I believe, and what do I appreciate, it's too late. It's then not natural. We don't just live it because that's how we've always seen the world. It needs to be a topic of discussion at the dinner table, with open doors for questions and even safe little debates. It should be okay to discuss and have differences in the home about the way we see patriotism, especially, and to talk about issues that are relevant to today. It begins in our families because we're with those we love and we know that they will be there for us, ideally. And so then we can debate about things and talk about issues in a safer, more respectful way. When we strengthen our marriages, when we teach kindness, when we help children learn respect, when we serve a neighbor, we're strengthening our communities. We're doing this, we're learning about this in the home. So it's just our second nature.
Yeah. And I think of so many families who are doing this so well, just what you're talking about. I see around me these incredible parents and families that are doing just that. And Debbie, you touched on something that I think is so near and dear to most of our hearts. And I think is actually maybe perhaps the most important thing to be talking about. at the dinner table. And that's the ability to talk about things with people that we disagree with, but to do it in a way that we respect. I just think it's such an important skill. It's something I think we've lost in a lot of ways. We all know this, and we're not saying anything we don't know, but the idea of, like you've said, meeting together as families and discussing these important things, it may be one of the greatest challenges of our generation. Can we disagree without becoming enemies? Can we defend our beliefs while still treating other people with dignity? One thing that you and I love that the Savior said is, please be peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. He didn't say anything about those who win every argument. He invited us again and again and again to be peacemakers. And so I think it's actually one of the most patriotic things that we can learn to do is, how do we agree to disagree and learn to do that in a way that's deeply respectful of someone else and where they're coming from?
Yeah, what it boils down to is to be able to say, well, that's interesting that you see it that way. That's interesting. That doesn't mean I'm going to try to take that away from you. I'm just going to say, that's interesting to me, and hold what we value and see as most important, to be able to honor that and honor the differences. So, really, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and can I add one thing about that? I find too that if I will open my mind a little bit when I'm listening to someone, I'm often see something that I didn't see before that they're teaching me. And so, yeah, we're so quick maybe to keep our mind really closed about our own beliefs. But I find if I can really open my mind and listen carefully, a lot of times they're saying things that wow, that actually is a good point. I'm so glad you helped me see this differently. So sorry, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I love to have the attitude of being teachable
Teachable, yes.
and influenced by others' views, which expands, makes us more flexible. I'm just thinking though about the times in my life when I've noticed the most unity and patriotism are when we're going through challenges, painful events. I think about 9/11, and I think about how I noticed that the country seemed to come together. They were all fighting for the same thing: safety, to be able to be protected, to be able to live with freedom, and to walk the streets knowing that we have protection. That why is it that pain and challenges bring us together? Well, we're focused on one thing, and that is healing. So I actually love that you pointed out that the Savior's way is an excellent example. His example of peacemaking is how we can have patriotism at the same time. We all long for peace, but it really needs to begin in our own hearts and minds, that we set our sights each day on bringing peace to our surroundings, in the way that we interact with others, in the way that we reinforce our relationships. So, for just a minute, I love what we've been talking about, but I want to shift our focus on our gratitude for those who serve our country. One thing that I found myself saying so often recently is, I wish that we had good people that could run for office. I also know that there are very good people who choose not to because it's so scary. And then I look at our military and I think, well, I don't think I could stand at the front lines of a war and have courage and confidence, but I have those loved ones in my family who do that and are right now training to be able to do those very things for our country. Freedom has always come at a cost. And I've always felt especially grateful for those who have served and who have sacrificed their lives. First responders, public servants. I talked about those that run for office. What an amazing sacrifice that they are giving to set aside time to be able to make sure that laws are in place, that laws are enforced, that protective factors are in place. Teachers are those that serve our community, parents, volunteers, countless citizens who quietly make our communities stronger. Sacrifices that don't make the headlines, but they matter. And are we doing that? Are we grateful for that? Their service, all these people that I listed, remind me and us that liberty is something each generation is called to protect.
Yeah, as you talk about the military, we served in the military for 9 years. I have such deep respect for the families and the people that we served with for 9 years. I can't even tell you in my heart what was happening as you were talking about that. I watched day to day, what they did to protect our country and the sacrifices that they made. And it's a deeply emotional topic for me. I also love the idea that we put our citizenship above more of a worldview, I guess. I've also lived in some different countries. I've lived in Australia and Germany for some years, and I have such a love for their countries as well. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is how important it is for us to love our own country, but to also love the countries that others live in and to learn from them. I've learned so much from people in other countries and to be so deeply respectful of their patriotism and their love for their country and my love for their countries too. So just lots of emotions flooding through me as you were talking, Debbie.
Thank you for bringing that up, Sharilyn. I forgot that you and your sweetheart, your family, were immersed in the military for many, many years. And as you bring up these other countries, and then you put the term love in with that, love is a binder. And when we love our country and we are responsible voters and participants in the process, that's what binds people together and creates safety in the community. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so I guess we're to the point where we want to consider maybe some questions then for this time of year. The questions might be, how can I strengthen freedom in my own corner of the world? I love that. How can I personally, individually do something to strengthen freedom? And actually, maybe I'll ask you, Debbie, if you have any thoughts or ideas about how you might do that.
Strengthen our community. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how would you personally strengthen the freedom in your corner of the world? Actually, that's a better way to say it.
I want to quote someone that I learned something from. And I think I've talked about this before. The First Lady of Guatemala, I asked her, how do you strengthen society? She said, when you strengthen families, you strengthen society. So I'm going to answer that by saying, I think the only way that we can really do that effectively is to work on our own relationships in our home and the influence that we have in our circle, our immediate circle. And then add to that, if there are opportunities to serve in the community, to look for those ways to do that. But I always have to circle back to when we strengthen our home, that then contributes to the stability of society.
I love that. I'm going to ask another question and one that we can all think about. How do I listen or can I listen more compassionately? This is such an important one. Again, I think we sometimes believe that we have to agree with people. We don't. We don't have to agree, but it's so helpful and respectful to validate them and how they feel. And that's really what we're all longing for, is to feel like someone's hearing us, right? Not necessarily agreeing with us, but do you hear me? Can you stop and consider for a minute why I feel this way or why I'm coming to the table with this perspective? And again, I find if I'll slow down and really listen, it makes a lot of sense why they feel the way that they do. I hear a lot people say, I can't even understand how they can feel that way, right? How many times do we hear that in our country? It's just beyond belief, that people could feel this way versus the way I feel. And I just find if we'll slow down long enough, there's really good reasons for why people feel the way they do, their life experiences. Something has taught them that the reason that they feel the way they do. So
Right. I think it's a matter of listening to understand, not listening to persuade.
right. No, it's
And we keep our hearts open and we say, because there's nothing like having someone ask you, help me understand. Instantly I feel safe with them. Or there might be an intent to change my mind, but that first initial reaction inside of me is, really, do you want to understand? And there might be some very distinct and strong differences, but I think it's about the relationship and the moment when we say, I do want to understand you. And then, there's been times in my life when someone has made a statement, I disagree, but then I ask them, so tell me, how did you arrive at that? And there are times when they say, I don't know, I just heard it somewhere. And so I think let's circle back to patriotism. Patriotism is being educated enough about your country and community to be able to have strong opinions and to then seek out ways to unify. So, anyway, that was a long answer to a short question of how can we listen better. It's listening to understand, listening to be more unified in our ability to be together with differences.
Love that. Along with that, Debbie, is then how can we speak more respectfully, right? That's the second part of this is how do we express ourselves? Sometimes we feel so passionate about the things we believe in. How can we do that in a way that's respectful and kind? That comes back in some ways to our tone, our body language, the words that we use. I guess all of it in a way that's respectful of others listening to us. And then finally, and I actually would love your ideas on this too. How can I become a better peacemaker? And I like, I always, I don't know why when this word comes up, I always think of Sandra Bullock's Miss Congeniality, where in in beauty pageants, one of the common answers when they ask them questions is what they long for in the world, and they'll say world peace. Everybody wants world peace. The question is, how do we do that? It's not as simple, to the details of it. So I guess I'm curious what you're thinking of when you think about being a better peacemaker.
Oh, I just think about Dr. Marshall Rosenberg,
Mm,
who was a clinical psychologist, but his main focus was working with world leaders to help them in their disagreements and prevent war. And so basically, he would sit with both leaders in the same room and their cohort. And then he would ask each one, what is your goal? What is it that's missing for you? And what's so interesting is when they all were able to put it on the table and see and collaborate ways to bring that collaboration, it brought peace because each one felt validated. So if you take that into, I'm not going to sit with world leaders, but in my own community, in my own home, if I can say to that person that might disagree with me, what's missing for you? What is it that you long for? What's your goal and your hope? That brings peace because each person has a sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance, importance, value. And so peacemaking really means giving everyone an equal voice.
I love that. What other thoughts do you have about patriotism today before we go?
Well, I said something a minute ago that I think we need to remind everyone, and patriotism is when you can understand and have enough knowledge about your country, mix some gratitude in there, see what you have today that you are blessed by because of, and I'm thinking about our country, of course. But, we've learned that we have listeners across the world, Sharilyn. We have people from multiple countries that are listening to this podcast. And I think the same thing for all of you. Learn about your country, learn about the rules and the things that bring you freedom and stability, and try to reinforce those and, try to live together in more unity. I think the greatest gift that we can offer our nation is not just our opinions, but our character, our goodness, our integrity.
I love what you said a little bit ago when we circle it back. I think the strength of a nation is the strength of individuals and families. It's so easy actually to blame the government. Well, we are the government. The integrity of our lives, we're what make up so much of what our countries are about. And so, yeah, that integrity, that character that builds, what a nation is made of. We each have a personal responsibility in our own lives and in our families to do that. And so I love that you and I are marriage and family therapists. I guess for me, that's how I feel like I am helping is I think in our work, we are at the grassroots of families. And if we can help families become better peacemakers in their own homes, then that strengthens the nation as a whole.
Yeah, I think about the model of therapy that we use and the principles that apply.
Mhm.
That applies to any relationship, including our relationships with our community, in government, in enforcing laws, in living laws. It's all the same. It's seeking what's missing, what our goals are, what our hopes are, and honoring all of that.
Yeah.
So, isn't it interesting? Yes, I'm grateful for our profession, Sherilyn, and the opportunity we have to touch lives in small ways, but hopefully that trickles out there and influences others in an exponential way. This has been a great topic. I'm so glad we talked about it today.
Yeah, I'm leaving feeling more grateful for what we get up to every day in this beautiful country. We're right in the middle of the World Cup too, as we're recording this, and so many are coming to the United States and seeing the things that are so beautiful here that we get up and enjoy every day. So I don't know if we've used another important word here yet today, and that's humility.
Mhm.
Humility of understanding what we have been given on the backs of others, and to be so grateful, so humble about the gifts that we get up and enjoy every day in our country.
Mhm. Well, it's been so great to have this discussion with you, Sherilyn. I hope that our listeners will continue to follow us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care, everyone.